Okay, as in go? This is Forktales, a podcast that feeds the restaurant world. If you like what we're feeding you, please follow us on your podcast service of choice. And do give us a 5-star review. Think of it as a tip for good service. Hey guys, today I'm joined by my new friend, Sterling Douglas. He's the co-founder and CEO of Chowly, which we're going to dive into a lot. So many things happening over there. And just so you know, we've been chatting for about 10 minutes on all things. So I think it's going to be a great episode. Sterling, say hello and give a little bit of backstory.
Hey, Joseph, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to kind of dive into a bunch of these topics that we were getting into. Co-founder, CEO at Chowly. We're a digital platform that enables restaurants to expand their off-prem capabilities. Before Chowly, I used to be an actuary deep into data analytics and just found that data really wasn't moving cleanly between restaurants. And that really prompted kind of the founding for Chowly so that we could take data from the Uber Eats, Grubhubs of the world, and help restaurants kind of adopt this new technology without the operational headaches that a lot of them bring.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's actually just dig right into that founding a little bit. Suffice to say, online ordering and the tech that you got into, there's a lot of players out there. So what really prompted, because it seems like a big risk, right? It's like, I'm going to launch another online ordering platform. You're going into a sea of a lot of varying degrees of competition from the old guard to the new. What made you feel like, hey, I think we're going to do this better. We're going to do this different?
Yeah, I mean, look, over the years, I've looked at hundreds of online ordering and white label tools from, like you said, groups that started in 2003, 2005, to some of the recent upstarts that have raised a lot of venture capital to get their business going. It's something that we've been deep with. We partner with a ton of them. We've resold them. We've referred them. We've helped restaurants get set up, and we've gotten all this feedback. And we always got to ask that question. Restaurants ask all the time, like, hey, when's Chowly going to do an online ordering tool? And I always mostly just said, I don't really want to. There's already so many out there. But what we ended up finding is that there was always, most of these online ordering tools fell into two buckets. One, they had great front end and consumer experience. Which was really helpful. But then they lacked on the back end and the operational side with the restaurant. It was hard to manage, didn't really work with their point of sale system or fit their flow. Or you found the exact opposite scenario. Really great back end operational side, but the consumer experience was pretty lacking. And so when we were kind of evaluating this, the opportunity to bring Koala under the same umbrella came out. And the most interesting part to me is that that's all they do is the front end and the consumer experience. And they're so good at it, even the biggest dog out there in the online ordering space, Olo, refers them in and is a top partner. So we found literally the best in class on the front end. And on the Chowly side, most of our product is the operational flow. We're helping, things like Grubhub and Uber Eats fit into the restaurant's flow, integrate into the point of sale, get all the data and everything. So we knew we were really good at that. And one of the reasons that we didn't want to build that is because we knew it's really hard to be good at both. We didn't have the right people on staff. It would have taken a long time. And even if we did build it, it would have been expensive and it still might not have been enough. And so this opportunity to bring Koala in is like, hey, we can actually get both of these things. We can have literally the best in class consumer experience and the best in class operational experience to the restaurant. And if we can truly meld those together, that's going to be the best experience for the restaurant industry, and especially in the independent operator space where they just, they don't have a good option to kind of get multiple things under one roof.
Yeah, and so for those who have been either stuck in the kitchen and not able to bring their head up for the last few weeks, Chowly just completed acquisition of Koala. If you're unfamiliar with Koala, we did do an episode with Brett from Koala a few back, and we'll make sure we have a link to that in our show notes. Koala basically started for lack of, I'm going to make this sound really dumb, but basically they skinned the olo.com services, so you had a bit more brand control, you had a bit more control over upsells and how that looks instead of just the out of the box solution that olo provides, and I think thereby reducing the average of 5 clicks to get through a completion of an order. So you guys scoop them up. At its core, Chowly started as more, would you say, an integration mechanism between POS and online ordering?
Oh yeah, yeah. Point of sale integration company is how we described ourselves for a while, almost an API as a service, right? Because
Mm.
we were basically leveraging and creating APIs to help data flow between these systems. So bringing in Koala that specializes on the user experience. Not only are they maniacal about conversion rates, which I think is lacking in the restaurant space, but they've got machine learning that helps make recommendations to increase basket sizes, and the customization of it is so amazing. Go look at Mod Pizza and go look
Mhm.
at PF Chang's. They're both Koala, but they're completely different experiences. They're unique to the brand, and it was one of the things that I thought was so special about what they were building.
I love that. So yeah, Chowly essentially is the Zapier of the restaurant technology world. What's interesting is when you go to the website, the Chowly website. I think a lot of us who aren't super integrated into the online ordering and in the POS world, you say online ordering, most people are going to say Grubhub, Postmates, DoorDash, Uber Eats, and maybe another one. And what's funny to me is like I almost had to take a step back and question how much I know about this industry when I see your ticker of logos, and I'm like, oh brother, I haven't heard of like half of these. Oh my gosh. And so it's interesting to see those competitors out there now when looking at Koala as a mechanism to get into a stronger online ordering offering. How do you imagine that's going to play out, as being basically viewed as a competitor to some of the folks that may have been a partner in the past?
Yeah, yeah. So two things on this. One, co-opetition is just wild in the restaurant space. The
Mhm.
amount of overlap of features from point of sales to online ordering companies to loyalty systems to marketing ones, everyone's got overlap of feature sets. That's something that's really just become standard in the industry. So that's not new. All right. Some of our partners have third party marketplace integrations and they just use us for the point of sale side. Some of them are point of sale systems that have a couple direct integrations, but use us for everything else. And so that's commonplace in this industry. That's not new. So for us, it's really something that isn't going to shock a lot of people. But I think the important part that we need to always maintain and that we will is to create an even playing field. The Koala module and how it sits today is going to work and use the exact same API that we make available to everybody. So it doesn't matter whether you're, $1 billion publicly traded Grubhub, you're using the same API that a new startup is using on the online ordering side that built to our system. And that's the same as what Koala is going to be using. So making sure that we have an even playing field for everybody is important. And to be honest, the co-opetition is not new. It's something
Mhm.
that's been around for a while.
Yeah, I love that. It's part of, I think, a bigger issue too, or not issue, but I think a new wave of challenges that are coming because the restaurant industry was so far behind in technology comparatively to other industries that are way ahead, right? Um, I think we're going to start to see a lot more of this convergence of tech. Um, how do you see that playing out now? Obviously, for the Chowly roadmap, even the stuff that we're not allowed to know yet. But as you look around the landscape, is this something that you're cheering on, like this consolidation, converging, and where do you think the next step is going to be with this, once we've aced the combination of POS on online ordering? What's the next world that we're going to enter into?
Yeah, so when we think about the convergence or the consolidation in the tech space, you had globs venture capital poured into tech companies into the restaurant space, and they all focused on a specific problem to solve because restaurants are deceptively difficult business models, and people very often underestimate how complicated it is and how big a business you can build solving one really meaningful pain point that restaurants have. So you created a ton of these companies in all different spots. And as you've seen as you've seen restaurants, go through last year where you just saw this crazy increase in labor costs and food costs, all of a sudden it made a lot more sense for them to maybe I can reduce vendors, save a few dollars here. I might not get best of breed, but I'll still get enough for me to kind of make the advances in technology to meet my consumers where they are. And so you started to see a lot more of that consolidation. And so I feel that the restaurant industry is going through a bundling cycle right now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not uncommon for industries to go through bundling and unbundling cycles. We went through a big unbundling cycle where best of breed was really taking place because of the acceleration that COVID, provided for restaurants. And now you're starting to see a bit of a bundling cycle. And so, yeah, you're going to see some of it, but at the same time, there's so much innovation coming in the restaurant industry. So you're seeing consolidation on certain features, but you're still seeing tons of innovation and new ones. You're seeing, what's next. I mean, dynamic pricing is going to really take off this year. That's a new and kind of separate, piece of technology
Yep.
that's going to go, and it's going to grow a ton. Companies like Sauce Pricing and Juicer, they're the talk of the show, and so you're going to be seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot on the data side. So you're seeing a lot of data consolidation, not just from the point of sale, but how do I get my food costs, my labor costs, my sales, and my customer and my payments all in one place so I can look at these things together. And so I think you're going to see just as much innovation in new companies and new product lines as you're going to see on the consolidation side. But I think the consolidation has to make sense. It has to pair well together. Consolidation for consolidation's sake, I don't think is helpful to anybody.
Yeah, I think it's a natural progression that you kind of talk about. I mean, what we saw is we had these OG old guard POS systems that sort of just tacked online ordering on as a yeah, and we do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what's great about the innovation world or whatever you want to call it is people see that and they say, hey, this actually is not good, and that is the seed of innovation. We can do it better, and if we can find a way to tap into that system, well, now we have a nice path forward. So you're right. It is this like natural ebb and flow where innovation really is the driver as people zero in on the pain points of those like micro, not even maybe micro, but like little bits of the picture that are already there from the POS system. So they're focused on their machines, they're focused on their hardware, maybe their software, online
Yeah.
ordering is tacked on. And actually it's funny because I see that happen a lot with email marketing. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, we have online ordering and email marketing is a thing too. Anyway, the online ordering, and you're like, right, but that is such a huge thing that could be so much better with
Yes.
segmentation and automation and all these things. But you just sort of crammed it on there. I'm looking at you, Toast. I'm sorry, but your email marketing system is terrible, and you could tell it's an afterthought. So if you just open up a little bit, guys, then other email marketing. Anyway, all right, off topic. But the other thing
No,
that you mentioned too,
but it's a good point because it's box checking tech, right? Like
yeah,
I need to check a box on this RFP, or I need to say that I have it. I mean, the amount of restaurants who say, "Well, I have to have loyalty," right? Because in the head they're like, "Well, I need it," and then I dig in and I'm like, "Well, what does loyalty mean? Like, what are the features that do it?" I get answers from being able to reorder something to email to things that are more of a CRM, and there's this huge swath of things, and a lot of companies, especially tech companies, get a deal done. They do box checking, and that was
right.
exactly what I wanted to avoid when we looked at Koala. I wanted this to really make sense, really be complementary. I wanted the missions to align. I wanted core values to align. Like it had to make sense for it really to truly work in my head.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bringing up the loyalty side of things. Salespeople are always to blame. I'm sorry, guys. I love you, but it's always them. Because it's like you're so good at your job, but the first question hasn't been asked, which is like, do I need another app on my phone? And if it's just to check the box that I came here, isn't there a better way? Now, friends at Big Chicken. I'm sure you've run into them before. Sam Stanovich
Of course.
Jason, great guys. They took that and ran. I got to hear them talk last year a little bit about it, and they've connected it to the thing that matters most, which is your payment mechanism. And it's like, yes, we want to benefit you if you come here often. We don't need you to download an app. I'm at the point now, like, where the only time an app really matters is if it's completely built with the customer in mind, like Starbucks, like Papa John's, like some of these well-designed apps that are out there. These out-of-the-box solutions are just that. It's a loyalty. I mean, not a loyalty. It's a repeat traffic tracker and a fast track to getting into a mobile order. Have you seen? Have you? I mean, do you agree? And do you see a world where those experiences are going to become better and more worth it? Because I've heard leaders basically say, like, we did the app and we paid for it, and it just doesn't work for us.
Yeah, it's a hot topic because there are situations where it really depends on the intrinsic value that you're providing. So when I talk to restaurants and they say I want an app, you really dig in and understand why. And I have found that typically when they want the app to want the app, well, they go with a vendor who checks the box and they get out what they put in.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also seen situations where they've wanted to get the mobile app because they're meeting where their consumers want. But they have customers who actually want to interact this way. When you're on mobile, you can actually create easier flows. You can make it easier to order. You can build a really good hospitable experience in it. And then all of a sudden, you've seen it like literally make them more money because all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden they know that 10% of their traffic's going through app because that's what their consumers are using. The app has a 2.9 rating on the App Store, has a crappy conversion rate. Then they get one and they say, hey, we already know we have customers here. We want to give them a better experience. And you build it with that intention. All of a sudden, you have a 4.9 rating on the App Store. You're converting 70% of the users that start an order. And now all of a sudden, you went from 10% of your sales to 20% of the sales, and it's almost all incremental. That's when it makes a difference. That's when you're providing that intrinsic value. So we have this discussion a ton internally on like, what are we doing with the mobile app? And on my side, I'm like, we need to provide intrinsic value. Like, we're not going to make the box checking product. That's not what I want us to do. And so when we provide that intrinsic value, I think it is there. So I think that having an app has tons of advantages to both restaurants, big and small. But it has to be done with this intent, and it has to be done deliberately. And if you do it that way, that's how I think you can provide a great experience. And at the end of the day, make the restaurant more money and make their customers happier.
Yeah, I love that. And online ordering, I think, is probably the better approach to really thinking about loyalty. Loyalty's beginnings start with repeat traffic, repeat purchases, and having a fantastic experience time in, time out, whether it's digital, physical, in person, or even non-transactional. And so if you have control over that online ordering part and you have the look there, then it makes a lot of sense that you could easily start to push that into what does loyalty really look like, and how do we reward it? How do we recognize it? And it sounds like that's what the acquisition of Koala is giving you almost a basis to start to approach. Maybe I'm digging into something you shouldn't talk about, but it seems like that's the path forward, right?
Yeah, we have so much work to do on
Yeah.
getting the first party experience, the mobile app experience, our third party experience, making all the data. We have enough on our plate right now. I'm not trying to add big things like that right now. We have some great partners today on that side that are experts in this, and that's what we want to let them do.
I love that. If it's being considered, blink twice. I'm just kidding. All right. So, no, that's great. So you did bring up a topic so I do think we're going to have Carl from Juicer on the show here soon.
Excellent.
I'm excited about it. I am a complete bulwark against dynamic pricing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet.
like, I don't buy into it. I get it from the operator side. It is so sexy to be able to make the money you want to make. I think it's going to be a loyalty killer, or at least in the way it's being thought about now. So tell me I would love to hear your hot takes on dynamic pricing, and how do you think we can launch dynamic pricing without harming our loyalists, the people who they know that with tax, my pizza is going to be 11.72. And now all of a sudden, because it's Friday at 6 p.m., my pizza is 18.92. How do we tackle that?
Yeah, I think there's a I can take this in a lot of different directions. Let me start out by dynamic pricing is not applied to every purchase uh, the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's a handful of ways that dynamic pricing can be kind of dispatched to make sure that you're not harming that experience to your loyalist. And I can think of a ton that are literally live today, and ones that will probably be live as the end of year as the technology gets better and better. But I think to start, most of the uses I'm seeing on dynamic pricing are with third party marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
And on these third party marketplaces, customers are paying for convenience. It's not the most profitable channel for the restaurants and the operators. And so what dynamic pricing is really saying, like, hey, if you want the added convenience, it's pushing that cost to the consumer when they're really busy and they have the opportunity and they say, I have 100 orders to fill in this hour. I can only fill 80. How do I handle that? How do I maximize and optimize my operations? Well, basically making that 81st order slightly more expensive, and then the 82nd order a little bit more, and the 83rd order a little bit more. Now all of a sudden the customers are paying for the convenience, the ones that they really want it, and the restaurant is being able to benefit from like the convenience, and like, this is going to stress my system. It's going to be harder and harder for me to execute this order or these orders. So by the time I get to the 101st order, the risk in me executing it well to provide a good experience is already there. So if I can help taper that down so I don't get that high, and I can optimize those orders so they're profitable, it's helping really share the risk. It's helping diversify that. And it's why it's actually better for the customer, because the customer, look, this restaurant's just too busy to take this order right now. If you
Mm-hmm.
really, really want it, like, you can have it, but you can also self select out so that you don't have a bad experience, because it's hard to execute orders the busier that it gets. So I think that's one case where it's really smart. You can always buy it to your third parties, but not your first party. So your loyal customers are going to be buying from your first party. I've seen groups starting to do subscription services. You could easily
Mm-hmm.
set it so anyone who's part of like your subscription service always gets like standard pricing. There's a number of ways that you can handle this. And look, restaurants are really good at being hospitable, and they're getting better at doing it in the new digital world. And I think that, yeah, when it first starts out, it's going to be shaky. You're going to have some grumpy customers, but we're going to figure this out. And as long as technology companies continue to be merchant first, think about their operators and think about the experience, I think that this is going to work, and it's going to be normal. It's going to be standard, 12 to 24 months from now.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think that we prevent from getting into more of uh, the same situation that happened with travel, right? With OTAs, online travel advisors, because that's the other side. Is like everyone's like, well, look, it worked for the travel industry. I'm like, did it? Because like now the margins are even more razor thin. The competition is even fiercer. Um, that doesn't seem like a really good output for the industry. Like I get everything you're saying. I don't disagree with what you said either. I think it makes sense. It's almost like expenditure driven throttling as opposed to literal throttling.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But this all of a sudden, like I love my hamburger from Sterling's Burger Shack, but man, that thing's doubled now. So I guess I'll try this other one that I wasn't going to try. Now I become a little less loyal, right?
Yeah, but you're also trying out another restaurant, and if the other restaurant has a better burger, ultimately that's better for you as the consumer,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, if at the end of the day, there's a balance. You know, when Chowly first started, the third party marketplace ecosystem was really different. I mean, Uber Eats wasn't a marketplace. It was literally a guy driving around in his car with hot subs around a busy block for a couple hours
Hmm.
during lunch. E24 was actually one of the biggest ones at the time. So it
Oh
was very
wow.
different,
Yeah.
yeah, very different
Throwback.
industry when we joined. And I remember going through investor conversations, and everyone told me the same thing. It's like, oh, it's just like the travel industry. It's just like the travel. Everything's going to end up just like the Expedias of the world. And my counter to that was that absolutely not. This industry is completely different. Um, the amount of diversity you have in the supply side is crazy. Half of the restaurant industry is small operators, independents. Half,
Hmm.
only half are big chains. So you're gonna run into issues. There's only a dozen airlines, and there's three that do like 80% of travel. So
Hmm.
you don't have the same big player mentality. You also have a crazy amount of reinvigoration into the supply. 3% of all restaurants go out of business every single month, and 3.1% open up new every single month. You have a constant rotation of supply. And so your players are always changing. This is not at all how the travel industry works. Not to mention the business models are completely different. You can't commoditize a really great burger. Like it's just
Hmm.
not how it works. The airlines are very much commoditized. The experiences are very similar. In a restaurant, they're completely different. And all it takes is a new general manager, a new ownership, and even at the same brand, the experience will change a ton. That type of diverse variability that's just constant and in your face makes it a completely different industry. So I've never thought that it was going to turn like the travel agencies. I get on the surface there's similarities, but the fundamental business model that restaurants are is very unique and very complex, very different from most other businesses.
Yeah, that's a great response to it. Taking into account like travel in general, and again, mother of all inventions. So if it does create the pain for people, there will be someone that comes along to try to solve that pain. It's the beauty of free market enterprises and the ability to innovate.
If point of sale systems and third party marketplaces built their products with open APIs in mind and were really like embracive of moving data, Chowly would have never existed.
Yeah,
We existed to solve that pain point. That pain point didn't exist before 2012, right? It didn't barely existed when we started.
right.
Really, the problem really exacerbated in 2019 and 2020. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So, one of the things, obviously, that sparked, I think, a rapid embracing of technology. We were kind of embracing it as an industry, but being forced into our houses and having to find a different way to get our food really just kicked it into the highest gear possible. Um, do you think that the behaviors have permanently changed, like from consumers? Like, obviously some things have come back, but not to the way that we saw it. Do you think there's a world where dining in person becomes more adopted than it has been in the last year or so? Or do you think we're in the hey, the way I get my food is from the palm of my hand?
Yeah, I think COVID accelerated things a ton. It took consumer adoption and drastically increased it. But you know what also has happened over the past 3 to 4 years that had nothing to do with COVID is that a larger percentage of the Gen Z generation has disposable income and is entering the workforce. This is a generation that grew up with tablets, grew up with screens. They've been ordering on DoorDash since before high school.
Mm.
So you're going to see the natural progression that we have, but then you also saw each of these generations take a big jump during the pandemic because they had to. So baby boomers went from being 2 out of 10 wanting to order app from 4 out of 10. That's double. And you saw, Gen Z has always been, I think, like 8 out of 10. But now Gen Z, is double represents instead of 3% of the workforce, it's 6%. I'm making up those numbers. Someone will fact check me and correct me on it. But you're seeing kind of both of those factors come into play, and restaurants again they need to meet consumers where they are, and so that'll be part of it. So yeah, I think it's definitely changed, but I also don't think on premise is going away. No matter how much I love the convenience of getting my food delivered to me or I go pick it up, I also love sitting down, love breaking bread with people, interacting with people, ordering food, getting recommendations, like that experience I don't think goes away at all. It's just kind of the percentage share that people kind of want to enjoy their food.
Yeah, I love that. I think it makes the interior design and the architectural and the customer experience, I think, even more important. So many brands just open up and it's like throw tables in there, get some paint on the walls or vinyl if you're the person I'm thinking of, and just give them a roof and give them a seat and then get them out. so we can turn the table. But I do think now is the time, as I don't want to use the word threat, but I will. But as digital threatens the viability of our dining rooms, the question becomes like, what makes my dining room worth sitting in?
Yeah.
And I think tech desperately has a role to play there to make the ordering experience even better. I've said it before. I've made some people mad about it, but I'm like, I'm not quite sure that my waiter is always the better choice. Um, the way we use
Yeah.
them, yeah.
100%. I mean, look at there's restaurants who like look at Jet's Pizza for example. The average
Mm-hmm.
Jet's Pizza has to have like 3 or 2 tables in it. It is meant for pickup. It is meant for delivery. That is how they've designed their business model. That's what their consumers have wanted. They've leaned into it. They added things like text ordering super early, and like that's when they're focused, and they've done really well. Then I can point to a number of other different chains that never did delivery or pickup, even during the pandemic when they didn't do it. And that was another route to go. And they're very successful, and I enjoy going to those places. I mean, during the pandemic, I saw in Chicago, especially, there's 1, 2, and even 3 Michelin star restaurants that were doing pickup
Mm.
and to go, and they
Mm-hmm.
actually did really well. Now, when the pandemic ended, they ended those services, but what they did do is they got involved in separate companies that focused on that, and now you have there are restaurant groups. So the guys from Alinea, for example, you have basically similar quality that they had on their takeout for finish at home, and now it's available for delivery, and you can order it through an app, right? And so sometimes you want that super high quality food, you're going to finish it at home. Like that's its own experience in itself. There's a
Right.
company called Entree doing this out of Chicago, and so the experiences are shifting, but the fundamentals are all there. And again, it's just meeting your customers where they are.
I love that. So obviously, so far, it's already a pretty darn big year for Chowly. What's next, man? Like, what are you able to kind of tease out there? What does the future hold for the company?
Yeah, no, we've got a big year in store. This is just the beginning. In January, we launched our new restaurant control center with some really cool, unique features that a lot of restaurants haven't seen, and kind of putting them back in the driver's seat, giving them more control. We've got a few features in there now. We're going to pump a lot more into that throughout the year. You've got the bringing Koala in house, so we're going to be able to have a combined offering for the SMB space, right around mid-year timeframe. And there's more to come. We're not done yet. We've got a lot we want to accomplish. We think we're really well positioned to do it. And to be honest, it's all for the sake of helping restaurants. And I've never had a clearer picture of what we can do to help them. So yeah, more to come. I know it's only March 3rd, but I'm excited, for what's next.
Yeah, it's a big year. Final question, then I'll let you get back to your day. Might be the hardest one of all. If you had one final meal, what would you eat? Where would you eat it, and why?
Oh man. I know it's probably a corny answer, but it would probably be my mom's homemade mac and cheese that she's been making for
Ooh.
me since I was a kid. It's I've never had anything quite like it. It's unique, reminds me of home, and I loved it growing up, and still love it every time I go visit her. So that would probably be it.
Did not corny at all. I've said it before. My final meal is Thanksgiving dinner. Um,
Nice. Oh yeah.
I love it. Whenever I'm blue or feeling stressed out, I find a way to make Thanksgiving dinner, and
Whenever
it's just the
whenever
best.
I'm blue and stressed out, it's usually poutine.
Yeah.
Because it's the least healthy, but absolutely delicious thing. So that's probably the more common occurrence. I
I
can't get
can't
my
blame
mom to
you.
ship me mac and cheese, too much.
Come on, mom, step up.
No, no, she's amazing. She's amazing.
I bet, man. That's awesome. Well, hey, man, thanks for being so candid. Thanks for everything you're doing for the industry. I'm really excited about what's happening next with Chowly. Um, I will have all the links to Chowly and the and your social channels and all that stuff as well. But is there a way for people to connect with you directly, Sterling?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not hard to find. Very active on LinkedIn. Go through all of that. It's usually the best place to reach out, get people connected. I go to a lot of conferences and shows. Love visiting, different cities, restaurants, and things like that. So always happy to chat. But I mean, our website's the best place for Chowly information, to get in contact with us. If you fill out that form, we reach out, literally in minutes. So we're not hard to get a hold of.
I love it, man. Thanks again for all your time. I appreciate it. And we'll catch up real soon, hopefully.
If you love what we served up, please
me,
follow us at Vigor Branding on Instagram and LinkedIn. Forktales is produced by the team at Vigor, a Pavone Group company. Audio and post-production provided by Zencaster and the Pavone Group team. Music performed by Jet Trash and licensed through musicbed.com. Joseph handles his own hair, makeup, and stunts.